Good evening, everyone. This is John Craig.
And this is Sandi.
And we welcome you to this edition of Walking in Spirit and Truth here on the Messianic Lamb Radio Network. And we're so glad that you've joined us. And so whether you're listening to us live or you're listening to us on the archive, I hope you spread this on your social media and let people know. We've got a really good show lined up for you today. And with some things, as promised, we're going to be talking about gates. And so we kind of gave you just a little bit of a taste and hopefully a little bit of a tease last week. And so here we are. We're ready to get going. So
I'm not ready to go yet.
But I want to say hello to those that are in the chat room so far. I see Joe in there. Good evening, Joe. It's good to see you. I'm so glad that you've joined us. And so as we're pulling up some other information here, I wanted to let you all know about our Sukkot, the Life of Worship Sukkot called, what is it, Sandi? Fire, water, and wine. There we go.
Walking in spirit.
Walking in spirit and truth. So we have that going for us this coming up here for Sukkot in October. And do you know those dates off the top of your head?
You should by now. The 13th through the 20th.
There we go. October 13th through the 20th. So we've got that coming up. We also have Brad Scott. He's going to be joining us at Life of Worship on September 27th and 28th. So if you happen to be in the Amarillo area during that time, we'd love for you to come out and be part of the time with Brad Scott. We'll have some good praise and worship. And so we're going to have some dance and we're going to have some great teaching and we'll have a fellowship meal and all that sort of fun stuff. And we would sure love for you to come to Amarillo and join with us for that celebration. So, I mean, we're looking at a time right now, we're getting so close to the fall feast. I mean, it's like right there at our doorstep. So pretty excited about all of that. And if you're looking at the different things that are happening on in the world right now, we're like, wow, what type of feast season are we going to have this year? Because we know that the feast seasons are prophetic.
That's right.
And how that looks, can we ever predict? No, we just look at the prophetic word. We look at those things. We look at the things that we might expect and we say, is this the year? Is this the year when everything starts to boil up and boil over and all that sort of stuff? Well, is that the year? Should that be a reason for us not to gather, to not celebrate the feast days or anything like that? Absolutely not. I remember a couple years ago, we never know what the days and the hours is going to bring. And a couple years ago, there were a lot of people that did not go to Sukkot. They stayed home. And the reason and the excuses were, it looks bad out there.
That was a few years ago.
And we want to be close to home if things are going to get bad. No, we're a people, we walk by faith, not by sight. We just want to be obedient because when we're obedient to the word, what happens? Yahweh promises that he protects us. So don't let anything that's happening discourage you. Yeah, it's just signs of his coming. And what happens when we have the signs of his coming? It just means that we're getting closer to the exit. That's all I can say. It's like driving down the highway. You got the exit. It says Lubbock, Texas, 110 miles.
Of course.
And then it says Lubbock, Texas, 70 miles. Then it says Lubbock, Texas, 30 miles. Well, that's down the road from us. Well, we just know that we're getting close to that exit. So here we are. We're going to trust in him. Thanks, Joe. That's exactly right. We're not supposed to be a people that walk around with a spirit of timidity or fear, but be a people that walks with a spirit of love, with power, with a sound mind, a people of faith, and we trust our Creator.
And I know that Joe's talking about, being in the area early. I think Twyla, my mom, is going. She's actually, I think, going early as well. So that'd be good. She's going to take the big old bus down there. Okay, when I say bus, it's not literally like a school bus.
No, it's just a big RV.
It's a big 40-foot RV.
Yeah.
So it's going to be good. I actually talked to the people this week at the campgrounds, the people that run it, and they were just verifying everything. They're so sweet. They're excited for us to be there and ready to get busy and help us out.
So spread the word. Let other people know. Say, let's go to the Texas Panhandle. I tell you what,
And if you are in the Panhandle or close, you need to come.
That's right. If you're in this 4-state area where you got the Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Colorado, New Mexico, all of these areas that are around us, we're close to you. And I'm going to tell you this, the campground that we have is amazing. It is beautiful. It's right off of a lake. There's great facilities there. There's wonderful trees, tree coverage where we're setting up our tents and RV. There's RV parkings and all the hookups and everything that you need. Just come out and join us.
Come out and join us. You won't be disappointed, right?
Well, let me tell you some other things are there. I mean, there's a children's playground. There's volleyball, softball,
frisbee golf, a big lake to mikvah.
That's right. I mean,
so much space to play games or whatever. We're going to have archery.
I'm excited about archery.
Shows. Well, of course, we're going to have puppet shows because Joe's going to do them.
Yeah, that's right.
For the kids and whatever kids come. And we're just going to have a great time. So you want to come out. You don't want to miss it. Well, if you guys wonder, last week we were continuing our talk about worship. And we were talking about, I will enter. Can you want to say that? I will enter his gates with thanksgiving in my heart. And I will enter his courts with praise. And as we were talking about, I will enter his gates with thanksgiving, we didn't get very far, but we briefly mentioned gates. And I told everybody I'm sort of stuck on that because gates are fascinating. So what is it about gates that's so interesting?
Gates. What are they? Well, they're the entrance. Just think about they're the entrance and an exit. What to a city, to a lot, whatever, but just think about the gates. So,
all right. So gates, what are their significance? There's so many scriptures on gates, but we know in ancient Near East, the city was protected by what? You had walls and gates. That's how the city was protected. And the elders of the city would sit at the gate and they would watch for strangers or circumstances that might be dangerous. And as a result, political and social issues were also settled where? At the gate. That's where the elders sat. They would settle those issues at the gate. An idiom for the gate, vasha'ar, is where the politically and socially powerful conduct human affairs. Wow, think about that. Where the politically and socially powerful conduct human affairs. That's the gate. Well, what's a modern day gate based on that definition? Where the politically and socially powerful conduct human affairs. You would just go off that definition.
Think about this. The television set.
No. I'm thinking about the politically and socially powerful. That would be Congress.
Well, yeah, but I'm talking about
the Capitol.
They invade our homes with those television sets
because they're not politically powerful.
And, they got politically powerful people coming through the gate.
We're talking about elders gathering at the gate discussing political and social affairs. Well, what does that sound like? So, it's the equivalent of a modern day Congress, only they're not at the gate, or maybe they should be if they're good, but I don't know how many people in our Congress are. Okay, we're not going there. Anyway, in the gate, what is that? It's wherever men and women determine the policies that govern the populace, really. Wow, that's a powerful place to be. So much happened at that city gate that you think about this, locals and foreigners would move in and out of the vicinity. The needy actually even begged at the gates. Let's look at Acts 3:2. Acts 3:2. Because we always hear in the word in scripture about the beggars. Well, where did they beg? They begged at the gate. I think today, where do people beg? They usually right at the overpasses, at least around this part of the country.
At the stoplights.
At the stoplight and the overpasses.
Acts 3:2 says, and a certain man who had been lame from his mother's womb was being carried along, whom they used to set down every day at the gate of the temple, which is called Beautiful, in order to beg alms of those who were entering the temple.
All right. And think of what else happened at the gate. So if the gate where all of this is happening is so important, obviously the gate has to be protected as well. And the military defended the gates, Isaiah 28:6.
Isaiah 20.
So they would defend and watch daily events. It sounds like they're watchmen on the wall at the gates. Why would you? Well, we're going to discuss that in a minute.
So Isaiah 28:6.
Isaiah 28:6.
A spirit of justice for him who sits in judgment, a strength to those who repel the onslaught at the gate.
So something needs defended. Where there are gates, there needs to be a defense.
All right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've got to have, I mean, it's multi-tiered too, by the way. If you think about it, you've got your defenders, you've got your judges, your elders, and you actually have a structure at the gate. So lots of elements going on there.
That's it.
Yeah, that's all I have to say about that.
All right. So again, that word is sha'ar, SHA''AR. And so really, when you look at all this, it basically means the gate means to place to complete business transactions, because that's what's happening there, right? So lots of business. So you think about the city. Sometimes the walls, they had 2 walls. We hear about that. And the walls weren't what we consider just a plain wall today. Those walls were thick. They were wide. And it was fortresses. Our cities don't look like that now, that's for sure. But in other ways, you think about it, and gates reflected basically the health and the well-being of the city around them. If the gates and the walls were dilapidated, unprotected, so would the people be. So would the city be. So in Jerusalem, when Jerusalem fell to the Babylonians, the status of the gates was what? The status of the gates, as well as the status of the people that lived inside the walls of the city, was torn apart, torn asunder, weakened for sure. And so your weak gates can represent a weak populace, weak people, actually. And I think that's very significant. Lamentations 1, verses 3 through 4.
If you think about that, you can think about how Nehemiah was given the charge to go rebuild the gates and the walls of the city, and which is very significant when you think about, why did he do that? Why the gates? Because Jerusalem was in shambles, and they needed to, provide protection for the people that lived within the city, which ultimately also meant protection for the temple that they were wanting to rebuild. So very, very, very important right there. I'm getting over to Lamentations. What was that?
Lamentations 1, verses 3 through 4.
Lamentations 1, 3 through 4 reads, Judah has gone into exile under affliction and under harsh servitude. She dwells among the nations, but she has found no rest. All her pursuers have overtaken her in the midst of distress. The roads of Zion are in mourning because no one comes to the appointed feast. All her gates are desolate. Her priests are groaning. Her virgins are afflicted, and she herself is bitter. So, so think about this. A city that's been destroyed because the gates have been pulled down, destroyed, whatever, it's not going to attract a lot of people, because if they're coming to a celebration, do they know if they're going to be safe during those celebrations as well? Think about that. If there's all sorts of stuff that's going on, which has ultimately led to the poverty and the impoverishment of a city, do you want to go? Think about Los Angeles right now. Los Angeles is impoverished. It is a representation of a third world country. Does anybody want to go there? They have stuff worse in Los Angeles than many third world countries, because it's being infested with rats and all sorts of feces and just horrible conditions. Yeah, just in the streets.
Didn't you say that was like that in San Francisco as well?
San Francisco as well. And in fact, here in the great state of Texas, Austin, Texas is starting to look like Los Angeles.
Do people not recognize that and want to change that and realize the source? I mean, it's not been gradually happening over the years. It's pretty sudden.
No, it is actually a ploy and a plan. And in fact, the city council of Austin actually passed a bill because what do they want? They want more homelessness. They want more homeless people going to Austin. They passed a bill that if one is homeless, they can even put up a tent in your front yard. And that is
How is that legal?
Except the only place you cannot put up a tent is in front of the city hall. Can't do it there.
Okay. How can they determine it's your yard?
Oh, but that's what city council passed. That's what liberalism does. But the whole point is,
that makes me angry.
They want to so create an environment of impoverishment there so that they can get more money. It's all about the money. And that is the stated goal. And they know that it is a cash flow from the federal government and from the state even. Look at all these homeless. We can't take care of them. We don't have enough. So what do? They get more money in, they get the grants, whatever. They siphon a little bit off for the homeless issue, and then they pocket the rest for whatever pet projects they want to do within the city. The
first thing that needs to happen is those homeless people need to go set up tents in the city council's yard.
Oh, yeah, I don't care. Those, no.
In fact, let them build a tent city in their yards.
Oh, yeah, but they're not going to do that because they're getting free access to all sorts of stuff. They're getting a lot of freebies. People want freebies.
You're not listening to what I'm saying. I know. Their minds might be changed if their front yard became a homeless city.
The only way to do that is if the good people of Austin go set up tents in the city council's yards. Just to demonstrate. That's the only way to do it. Because, I mean, the impoverished, they don't care. They don't care whose yard it is.
Okay, get rid of Austin, Texas. Let's delete it out of Austin. I mean, out of Texas.
There's a lot of good people. A lot of good people in Austin. They need to de-Californianize Austin is what they need to do.
No, we should make it illegal. I'm sorry, Joe and other people, but we should make it illegal for Californians to move and any other liberal state to come into Texas.
Or any other state, for that matter.
No, I'm not
There's a
blue or any
I have
liberal.
to say this. Forgive us if you're from California and you're listening. We're not trying to diss your state. We're saying that the politics of California is spreading out throughout the country, and we don't want those evil politics. From the stacked elections to the liberalism to the leftist stuff that's going on and the poverty that's been exported. We don't want that. And there's actually a T-shirt that someone had says, "Do not California my Texas." And I think you could probably say that, Joe. Don't California my Ohio. Don't California my Oklahoma. Don't, that's what we're saying. And there's a lot of people that have moved here, but they want to get away from what's happening in California. Sorry about the politics. And they want to go.
But don't bring it.
They're bringing their same politics here.
And that's what we say about people in other countries. They leave their countries because they're oppressed, and then they want to bring that oppression to the United States. Hello, people, wake up. That's idiocy. Yeah, sorry. I'm going to be straight up because they're idiots. You're idiots if you're doing that.
Welcome,
sorry.
You're welcome to come, but then come and be part of our state.
You're welcome to
come be part of our state. Don't try to make us be like who you are and who you left. That's all we're saying.
Don't change our values, but okay, well that's a rabbit trail, and now I'm a little bit peeved.
I'm pretty good at doing that. But let's get back on track.
Joe said she actually ran away from California and she'd never go back.
And California is such a beautiful state. It really is.
It was. It's not beautiful if it has feces all over the streets.
But, back in the 70s, it was like the go-to place. People, all sorts. My aunt and uncle and cousins moved there in the early 70s, maybe late 60s.
I think it's time for them to leave.
Yeah. Part of the family has left, and they've come back to Texas. So.
Well, anyway, let's get back to gates, which, by the way, a gate to our state, it really sort of goes with it. Are we going to protect it? Are we going to guard it? Because remember what I said is that the people would sit at the gate, the elders would sit at the gate and watch those who came in and out and guard it. You weren't allowed in if you brought evil and filth. Well, guess what? Somebody needs to be at the gate of your state, just like the gate of your city.
Isn't it very interesting that they would bring this type of thing to Austin, Texas, the capital of Texas, where the elders, so to speak, of the state all gather And it's true, Joe. You said that earlier in the comments. The Capitol is a gate, and so what are they doing? They're surrounding the Capitol in order to influence the legislation.
Who are we electing, folks?
And what are they going to do? Are they going to protect us, or are they going to succumb to the invasions?
Well, if they're going to succumb to the invasion, they need removed.
Get them out.
Anyway, so let's talk about the gate at the temple. All right. So Exodus 27:16 says, and for the gate of the court shall be a hanging of 20 cubits of blue and purple and scarlet and fine twined linen wrought with needlework, and their pillars shall be 4 and their sockets 4. So where was the gate? The gate was placed at the east end of the court, and it was the entry point to the tabernacle. And think about this. It was there was one gate, only entry point to the tabernacle. The gate at the east end follows the instructions for the hangings of the east side. So the choice of the east is not a mistake by any means whatsoever. And think about that. When you're said to be going east, you're walking away from toward, but when you're coming from the east, you're walking towards. And where's Yeshua coming in? He's coming through the east gate,
which is something
because the temple's placed. The gate is at the east, but the Holy of Holies is at the west. I mean, it's the furthest west of that place.
And if you think about Jerusalem today, what did they do to that eastern gate? They blocked it up. It's completely closed, and the only way to get into the Temple Mount area is to come from the west,
which means if you're going towards the east, that means you're walking away.
Yeah.
So from the word.
Can you imagine just the sheer aspect of what they tried to? This is a complete Luciferian plan to even to demonstrate his attempt to destroy the faith of our fathers.
That's right. Well, and that makes you want to go down what's east. Well, the etymology of the word east provides some really good insight into all of this, because the Hebrew word is kedem. So, and it's translated east as an old or ancient. It could be said that made to show that the ways and the laws and the custom of Yah come from the east. From the east. Remember, I said from. And the garden of Yah contained that tree of life, and it was placed eastward in Eden. And as I said before, Messiah will come from the east. So think about that. And I'll give you the scripture. Micah 5:2. Let's go to Micah 5:2. And I always find it very interesting when we look at compass points, when you hear compass points mentioned, because it gives you insight into something. I know a couple tour portions ago, oops, Sasha, you're falling off. A couple tour portions ago, we went over the compass points and their meaning, and it was so interesting. So if you ever have a chance to do a study again, I'm like, oh, let's do that. But we can get so lost by just these little things. Anyway, so what does it say?
Micah 5:8 says 5:2 reads, but as for you, Bethlehem, Ephrathah, too little to be among the clans of Judah, from you one will go forth for me to be ruler in Jerusalem or in Israel. His goings forth are from long ago, from the days of eternity.
All right. So understand this, that the words ancient, old, and east, they all speak of a source where something comes from. The words, where do they come from? Where's their source? Ancient, old, east. All those words are very important because it speaks of a source. And that is why Yah is called is called the one from the everlasting or the east. And that's Habakkuk 1:12, if you want reference to that. Or maybe we'll look it up real quick. Habakkuk 1:12. So, and well, he's looking that up. The word west or Yam speaks of the direction of the nations, and it's translated to as the seas or the source of the mass of humanity. And that's where we get the term sea of humanity. So we've got the everlasting from the east, Yahweh, and we've got the west, that mass of humanity. And yes.
Okay, verse 12 of Habakkuk 1. Art thou not from everlasting, O Yahweh, my Elohim, my Holy One? He will not, or we will not die. Thou, O Yahweh, hast appointed them to judge, and thou, O Rock, has established them to correct.
All right. Another part of West, that Yam, Y-A-M, which is number 3220, which I said is like a sea, like the sea of humanity. But the word picture is that of Yod, seed planted with the mem and the water in the womb. And that can also remind you of the Red Sea where Israel's mikvah, hitting it. And so it hints at death and resurrection and burial and resurrection too. But we're not doing all the compass points today, so we'll leave that there. But we know that man's ways come from what? Based on those two terms. Man's ways, the sea of humanity, comes from the west, and Yah comes from the east. So if you're traveling from the west to the east, you're walking away from Torah. And that's what we see in the Tower of Babel and other things too when you study that out.
Well, and consider that when they went into exile with during Jeremiah's time, and they were taken to exile to where? To Babylon.
Right.
So that is, they were taken away. So when you think about going to the west or going to the east and walking away from Torah, it's going into captivity.
Right. You're walking towards captivity, which is what we're doing all over this nation when we're walking away from his ways. So, and that's what we see. Anyway, so gate, let's get back to that. I want you to just picture the gates of the city, picture that. But I want you to understand that gates is really significant because it is the way to let things in. And notice I said things in and let things out. You let people in, you let people out. And it also, if you're coming into a gate, what happens to the traffic? It's going to slow down as things begin to press through. You have to get in order. Things may be, if you think of a large mass group of people or things or animals, in order for them to enter through the gate,
it's a narrow point.
It's a narrow point. It's a narrower way.
It's a funneling.
So you have to make a choice. You slow things down and you have to make this choice. In Mesopotamia and ancient Israel, gates served other purposes too, which we can't forget. They were markets. So not only did government happen there, but you had markets and gatherings, and judicial proceedings also happened at the gate. So there's so much going on. There were even message boards at the gate. Think about that. Not like we would see today, a billboard or something, but messages were given and served at the gate, just as well as legal decisions and legal documents. So it was at the gates is where justice is administered, was administered, should be administered. So think about the gates of our lives, because those are decision points in our lives. Think about that. Decision points of our lives. Now, with that being said, I want us to think about, go back to what it looks like with the gates of Jerusalem, the gates, because there were two gates. Yeah, there were two gates to enter the city. Two gates. There was a general larger entrance, and then so a larger gate, and there was a smaller gate. And the smaller gate was called the Gate of the Elders. It is that smaller gate that a lot of things took place. When you entered the city, you went through that small gate, and if you were met by city elders who settled debts and disputes, you would meet there and you would take care of your debts. You would take care of the problems. You would take care of those things that can chase you down. So if you were a debtor to anyone, you could take care of that debt at where? at the narrow gate. You could take care of the debt at the narrow gate, and then you were free to walk around the city without those burdens. I'm going to say that again and see if you're getting it. If you were indebted, you could take care of your debts right there at the narrow gate, and then you were free, removed from those burdens. You weren't going to be harassed. You weren't going to be condemned by your creditors. People weren't going to be chasing you down. They couldn't do it. Anything you had at all with anyone was settled right there at the gate with the city elders. However, if you were not concerned about settled debts or disputes, if you didn't want to face it, if you didn't want to take care of it, whatever it was, then you would walk through the wide gate, but anybody could come after you. You were at your own peril. In other words, you could settle your debts and be free right then and there, or you could take your chances and say, I'll take care of it later.
I'll slip in with the big crowd.
So there were two gates. Now, what does that remind you of? What is my saying there were two gates at the city remind you of?
Well, narrow is the gate. I don't know the complete verse or passage on that.
All right, let's look at Matthew 7:13.
Matthew 7:13. Here we go. Enter by the narrow gate, for the gate is wide and the way is broad that leads to destruction, and many are those who enter by it. For the gate is small and the way is narrow that lead to life, and few are those who find it. 13 and 14.
Whatever I just said. Let me look. Sorry. 13.
Okay, there you go.
Now, I want to give you, just so you have some more scripture to back everything up. I want you, we're going to spend just a couple minutes reading scripture, and I'll try to enter it in as you read. But let's look at Jeremiah 7:1-7. Thank you, Joe, for putting that in there for me.
Jeremiah 7:1-7 reads, the word that came to Jeremiah from Yahweh, saying, stand in the gate of Yahweh's house and proclaim there this word and say, hear the word of Yahweh, all you of Judah, who enter by these gates to worship Yahweh. Thus says Yahweh of hosts, the Elohim of Israel, amend your ways and your deeds, and I will let you dwell in this place. Do not trust in deceptive words, saying, this is the temple of Yahweh, the temple of Yahweh, the temple of Yahweh. For if you truly amend your ways and your deeds, if you can truly practice justice between a man and his neighbor, if you do not oppress the alien or the orphan or the widow, and do not shed innocent blood in this place, nor walk after the gods, to your own ruin, then I will let you dwell in this place, in the land that I gave to your fathers forever and ever. Behold, you are trusting in deceptive words to no avail.
All right. So some more background. Deuteronomy 16:18. Deuteronomy 16:18.
Well, we're jumping over there. Deuteronomy 16, verse 18. Which I think is close to this week's store portion. 16:18. And you shall appoint for yourself judges and officers in all your towns, which Yahweh your Elohim is giving you according to your tribes, and they shall judge the people with righteous judgment.
My version says, you shall appoint judges and officers in all your gates, which Yahweh your Elohim gives you according to your tribes, and they shall judge the people with just judgment. Deuteronomy 21:19.
All right, 21:19 reads, then his father and mother shall seize him and bring him out to the elders of his city at the gate or the gateway of his hometown.
And mine says, at the gate of that place. Deuteronomy 25:7.
Deuteronomy 25, verse 7. But if the man does not desire to take his brother's wife, then his brother's wife shall go up to the gate to the elders and say, my husband's brother refuses to establish a name for his brother in Israel. He's not willing to perform the duty of a husband's brother to me.
All right. Which one did I just give you?
That was 25:7.
Okay, so let's go over to Isaiah, and we're going to go to chapter 20, verse 4.
Isaiah 20, verse 4. Which reads, "And so the king of Assyria will lead away the captives of Egypt and the exiles of Cush, young and old, naked and barefoot, with buttocks uncovered, to the shame of Egypt."
Okay, and let's look at, I wrote it all, and I got to go.
Proverbs 31:23.
Yes.
Okay. Proverbs 21:23. "He who guards his mouth and his tongue guards his soul from troubles."
Okay, let's remember that. And then finally, Zechariah 8:16.
Zechariah 8:16. "And these are the things which you should do. Speak the truth to one another, judge with truth and judgment for peace in your gates."
And mine says, "Give judgment in your gates for truth, justice, and peace." And for obvious reasons, we know that gate is called the gate of thanksgiving, which goes back to our scripture. We enter his gates with thanksgiving and we enter his courts with praise. So I want us to jump back to what I had said earlier, that gates represent decision points of our lives. The gates must be guarded. We need judges at our gates. We need inner judges and officials at our gates. Think about that. We briefly mentioned it. We have to guard the gates. There has to be something, some integrity at the gates of our lives, at those places in our lives where things come and go.
You know, I was just thinking about this, is that if our eyes and our ears are a gate to us, I mean, thinking about this, because we live in these big old cities. Amarillo, Texas, I mean, there's no gate to our city. There's a loop that goes around, and then the major streets that cross that loop. Maybe you can consider those gates into the city. And I-40 runs east and west. Perhaps those would be considered gates to the city, but there's no one there. But think about this. But if our eyes and if our ears are a gateway to our soul, then do we have an elder? You know, we look at Yeshua as our elder brother. He is our king, the king sitting at the gate. I saw something earlier as I was looking at a description of vasha'ar, and on my eSword, I have a tab, and it actually has a gematria number for it. And there, in other words, the number equivalent of vasha'ar is also the number equivalent for Melech, which means king. And I just thought that was very interesting, that who sits at the gate, our king will sit at the gate to protect, to sit there. If we will allow him, he will help us guard our eye gates, our ear gates, what we're listening to, what we're hearing. He'll give us the strength in order to make sure that which is flowing in and out is pure.
Well, and in fact, in Eastern tradition, all your senses are considered a gate, all of them. Which, honestly, there are senses. That's the place where we find pleasure or displeasure, passion, desires. It's through our senses.
Yes, it is.
And so those gates absolutely have to be guarded.
I mean, think about our taste, and so if we overdo our taste, they call it gluttony, or they call it drunkenness. I mean, just even think about that. Overeat, overdrink. I mean, it's a gate into our body, let alone, what we talked about with our eyes and our ears. So that's really true.
Because things enter, and we can respond good or bad, morally, immorally, with the word, according to Torah or not. And if we're walking in integrity, and we have the gate of the Torah measuring what we allow in through our senses, in through our lives, through our ears, our eyes, our mouth, our touch, our all of our senses.
Joe has here in the comment, that's why we have to have the helmet of salvation upon our heads. That's exactly right. Think about this. When I was a teenager, I had a motorcycle, and I wore a helmet with that motorcycle. You know what type of helmet I wore? Of course, this was standard for living in Norway, and everybody wore a full face mask helmet. So, I mean, it came down over your ears. It had a shield that went over your eyes, and it had a protection for your jaw. And I mean, it protected my eyes, my mouth, my ears, and of course there's senses within the face. All of that is all protected wearing that helmet. And was truly a helmet for my salvation. Riding a motorcycle, it was to save me, which it did when I had a wreck. So very, very, very important. So awesome.
What I was saying is that when we measure it with the Torah, when we walk in integrity, when we measure those things and those things that go through the gates of our senses, of our lives, it's only at that point, when we're measuring, that we can act with wisdom. We've got to be walk in that discernment. We've got to be full of the Spirit to walk in that integrity. We judge things that are at the gate. We've got to be those judges. What are we allowing through or not allowing through? We have a decision to make at every point in our lives so that we can walk uprightly and righteously before our King. Because it just takes one little thing that we allow through the gates of our own lives. And it gets past that, and it can begin to create snake eggs. It can begin to create problems and mess us up completely. We've got to be watchmen on our own walls.
Well, think about this too. I talked about how it is about the King Yeshua, but think about this. Are we not also called to be kings and priests, which allows us, it actually elevates us into that place of being an elder, one who is also to be the one who guards. We've been given an appointment and an anointing in order to serve, whether it's protecting our own soul man, or by which we can be part of someone else's life and help stand and protect them. So, I mean, that's just another element there that I thought was just very interesting, where we're talking about the kingly role that even we play, and we ought to play, and we need to play. So,
well, let's go to Amos 5:15, because since we're talking about the senses and we're not stopping talking about the physical gates, but we're also bringing it into our own lives, because we know who is the gate and who is the door, and that's Yeshua HaMashiach. We're not there yet. We'll get there. But
and what was that? Amos 5:15?
Amos 5:15.
All right. Hate evil, love good, and establish justice in the gate. Perhaps Yahweh, Elohim of hosts, may be gracious to the remnant of Joseph.
So we see something there, because it sort of messes with our religion. In Western culture, everything is supposed to be personal. It's all about personal savior, personal. I think we have a cat that's getting into stuff.
Yes, it is.
It's a personal matter, and we believe in personal salvation, which, yes, there is that. That is important. That is part of our lives and part of what we believe. But Amos talks about politics and social policy and economic affairs here at the gate. He's not actually talking about that heart relationship, though that is part as well. We've got to look deeper. There's layers to it. And it doesn't take much thought to evaluate what happens when man doesn't sit at the gate. Just look around. Are you living the life you really wanted? What have you allowed in your gates? We have a society that's supposed to be great, but everywhere we look, what do we see? We were just talking about it. What's happened in California and so many other cities, especially cities around the United States? It's invaded and with evil. They completely reject God. They completely reject justice and truth, and and law abiding. They call evil good and good evil. And that's what we see in our so-called great society that's so progressive. You see the news, it's all full of relevant news around is really corrupt and it's full of lies because it is lies. It's all fake news. If you're
Propaganda.
listening to any of the major news network, it's all fake news.
Don't do it.
Don't believe anything they say, believe it. Know that it's the truth is exactly the opposite. But we have a civilization that has gone the way of civilizations of the past, full of immorality and idolatry and crimes against one another, crimes against humanity, and there's not consequence. And if somebody does face consequences, it's usually the people that should be in prisons and jails run free, and they take the people that have done nothing or next to nothing because they're easy targets. They don't have the big pocketbooks necessarily. And Amos doesn't say, now those who are believers should set up their own society. He doesn't say that. We live where we live, and we are supposed to be a part of the gates. And this goes around to what Dr. Deanna Dye has been saying, and so many others, is that we've refused as a people to sit at the gate, and we have allowed corruption in because we've wanted somebody else to take care of it.
Well, put this in another perspective. What's happening to the border of the United States? The border is a gate. And President Trump is building a wall. I mean, all they had is basically some lean-tos, some basic fencing, maybe some chicken wire somewhere. But in places completely open, President Trump, by building the wall, by replacing the dilapidated one with a good solid wall, what's it doing? It's causing these mass migration from the South to be funneled into these gateways. And that way they're able to.
Why do they let them in at all then?
Well, they're able to, it makes them get into the process and makes them get in line to do things properly. And it also funnels out a lot of the junk that's going on, because there's been all sorts of human trafficking. There's been all sorts of drug smuggling. There's been all sorts of other things that have been coming across and coming into the country because we didn't have a gateway that could be controlled. And so, and then how else are they controlling it? They're sending word saying, if you want asylum, you have to do it according to what the international law says. And that means you got to stop at the first country you get into. And many of them are crossing multiple borders in order to get to the United States and then ask for asylum. No, that's not how the law works. And so the gateways are slowing it down. They have people coming across all the way from Africa, from the Congo, where Ebola is, and they were coming in from flying into Venezuela or to Costa Rica or Guatemala or somewhere like that, and then coming up across all these borders into Mexico and into the United States. What's the wall supposed to do? It's supposed to just slow it down. Yeah, Joe, you're talking about also stealing children. They're actually renting children because they know that if you come in with a child, the way the law was reading, they had to release you within 20 days. And so now President Trump said, I'm not going to do that anymore, because so many were abusing a loophole in the law, and they were coming across, and then they were sending the kids back and renting that kid out again to bring them back across the border to have access to our nation. So, again, it's these abuses create a need for having better gates.
Well, I pray that we get to keep Trump in, somebody who's actually going to try to fight, and that's what we should be doing too. We're supposed to be guiding the community and this civilization from Yah's perspective, and not sitting back on our laurels waiting for somebody else to do it, because we are the ones that are supposed to be guarding the gates. We have got to be involved. We have got to be the ones whose voice is heard. And if they try to silence it, our voice should be that much louder, because let me tell you, the other side, if we try to silence them, they get louder. What do? We shrink back and we run away. We are the ones that are supposed to be salt. We are the ones that are supposed to be light. We are the ones that are the city on the hill. But we've opted for privacy. We've abdicated our place in society. So because it's easier, because it's less of a threat to us, we've put aside guidance and wisdom to protect our own fortresses.
Well, and the way the culture is that so many of us say, well, I can't get off work to go down there. Well, why? Because our culture has funneled us into these distractions to where we're so tied to those distractions, we can't do things that are right. And so we say, well, we'll have to send. If we can't go, who can we send? If we can't go, then how can we let our voice be heard? Do we have a hired army in the United States to be able to take care of that? Yeah, they should be there defending our borders. If they're not being sent, then we need our voice be heard to those that have the power to send them. I mean, there's different things, but so if we can't be at the gates ourselves, and in this nation, we are all the government. And if we abdicate that role to somebody else that doesn't represent us, then shame on us.
That's right.
And the gates really give that demonstration of ancient Israel, is that if they didn't put the proper elders into place in order to guard those gates, in order to make sure that only that the city would be protected, then shame on them for putting those people in as elders.
Right.
So,
well, we are at our time today. We're going to continue to talk about gates next week. We're going to talk about the two gates of the city, the wide gate, the narrow gate. We're going to briefly talk about some more here too. So you don't want to miss it. It's going to be a great show. I'm so glad that you've joined us today here on Walking in Spirit and Truth. If you want to hear more from us, you can go to www.lifeofworshipamarillo.org, and we have some messages there. You can drop us a line and let us know what you think. Let us know what you want to talk about. You can partner with us with the donate button. You can sign up for Sukkot. You can do so much at our website, www.lifeofworshipamarillo.org. If you're ever in the Amarillo area, hey, stop by and see us. Check our website out, find out what's going on for the week. And we're just excited that you're part of this family. So, hey, let's go guard the gates, folks.
That's right. If you like what you're hearing today, give us a thumbs up and share it on your social media.
Yes.
Give us a like. And also here, click that, what's the button there? So if you've not subscribed to the Lamb Network, subscribe. So that way, and click that little bell. So whenever there's a new program come out, you'll be notified, especially Walking in Spirit and Truth. So every Tuesday you go, oh yeah, there's my notification. It's about ready to start. We want to make sure that you're there with us.
You can also subscribe to the Life of Worship YouTube site as well. We have our services live most of the time. Anyway, we would love for you to be a part of that. Anyway, hey, let's get busy. Let's guard our gates.
Oh, thanks for joining us this evening for Walking in Spirit and Truth. So until next time, this is John Craig.
And this is Sandi.
Shalom.